Blue Collar Christian. Simple, everyday Christianity. So what's going on, guys? So we've had a pretty good break from the Blue Collar Christian podcast. We've had some things going on in life. It's been probably pushing 2 months since we've had an episode out. Yeah. So we have a one-off special episode here. We've got a group from Tennessee up. They're up here in Alaska checking it out, doing some mission work and serving the Lord up here, and they were excited to get on a podcast. So we got them in like the last day they're here. We woke up early before Sunday service this morning.
We leave in like 6 hours.
Yeah, they wanted to get it in. So here we are. So Nathan, Matthew, you want to give yourself a little introduction, what you do for a living?
Well, I work as a mechanic at Walmart right now, and in the fall, I'm going to start at Heritage Christian University online and get a Bible degree, going to preaching.
Awesome. Yeah, this guy's ready to go into preaching. We think you got him nailed down to come to Alaska and be a minister up here. So, yeah. Nathan, what do you do?
Name's Nathan Williams. I'm a college dropout. I work in the blue collar. Right now doing like subcontract work. Organized the trip, so hopefully we continue to do mission trips as life goes forward. And who knows? Might be back up here in Alaska in a little while. We don't know.
Definitely pushing hard. You know,
Definitely.
There's a group of
it's a hard consider.
15 of you?
15.
15? Yeah. So we're trying to get like, I don't know. One of the ladies told you yesterday that 90% of people that visit Alaska move up here. Yeah. So we're hoping we're going to get, I don't know, what is that, like 10 of you? I don't know.
That's a lot less than 90%.
That's what we're shooting for.
All I know is all Alaskans are pro salesmen because
we've been pushing hard.
It's been a hard push all trip.
Yeah.
But I can't blame them.
Yeah, I got a couple of job offers, and they haven't even heard me speak yet, so that's fun.
He's over here, and he's already getting, hey, come preach at my church.
Yeah, no, Homer's trying to nail him down. Saldana here's trying to nail him down. So Seward needs you. Yeah.
The demand is high.
It is.
Yeah.
You know, actually, it's funny. I was thinking about this last night, and I think I asked Dale. Dale's one of the guys that comes on this trip with us, and he's the guy preaching this morning.
Yeah.
And because he made a comment when we were talking about moving up here or whatever, and he made a comment. He was like, it was something about what he needed to move here or whatever. And I talked to him. I was like, no, I know dang well you ain't moving up here. And he was like, yeah.
He doesn't seem like the type of guy that's like, I want to be in Alaska.
Yeah, no, he goes, well, what's here for me that's not here for me at home? I was like, yeah, that's a fair point, whatever. But I was like, the other half of me was like, well, that's not what I'm thinking about. I'm not thinking about what I can get here. I'm thinking about what they need here and what I can supply, you know? And I think as a blue-collar Christian, that's something we need to think about, you know? Not just the work we do with our hands, but spiritually, what can we do?
It's so easy to get wrapped up in our day-to-day lives and forget that our day-to-day lives are supposed to be for the work of God's work, the work of the church. And yeah.
For sure.
We've talked about that a bunch of times on your trip, like, because you guys are very, obviously you're here on a mission trip, so you're very service-oriented, and you guys are living it, and applaud you guys for that, because that takes a lot to say, all right, work life, my personal life, it's off the table for, however long you guys are on your mission trip, and you're not making money, it's costing you money, it's, there's no physical benefit for it.
Technically, I did get paid this week on accident. I wasn't supposed to be paid this week.
And just won't say anything.
Now when I get back, I won't get paid for 2 weeks.
Now, all the people know that you're stealing money. All 5 listeners.
My employer is Dante Gay.
Refund coming in.
Refund. No, don't refund.
Yeah. So you guys hosted a gospel meeting for us while you're here on the Fruits of the Spirit, and
yes, sir.
That was really good. We all really enjoyed that, and I think that's kind of the direction we're going to head this morning. Follow what you guys were teaching, since it's all fresh in our minds, and kind of walk through the Fruits of the Spirit.
Should be well versed. Yeah.
I mean, we should know it by now. That was 4 or 5 nights of it, so we should be ready to go. But But I think one of the biggest things is how do we apply the fruits of the Spirit to our work life, our everyday life, which is really challenging, right? Matthew, you want to read, so it's Galatians 5. I don't know where you want to pick up, maybe.
Oh, well, fruit of the Spirit starts in verse 22, so I'll go ahead and start there.
Yeah.
If we want to move up, we can. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such things there is no law.
Truth.
I don't know how we want to walk through this because this is totally unprepared, no notes. We're just going to talk about
Let's
it.
just
but
hit it by fruit, you know?
Yeah, just one at a time.
Let's hit love and talk about that. How does that apply when they go down?
That's one of like the hardest ones for me, and in the work industry, because typically the guys we're working around are not the best guys to work around, right? They're not the best
Right.
for our spiritual walk. They bring us down. It's hard to love those guys, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
What does that look like for you guys?
I guess I get it. Well, what's interesting to me is that, you know, the Bible talks about different forms of love. There's different Greek words. And if I'm not mistaken, this one is the agape love. Like, it is the unconditional one, which makes this even harder because it's not just a brotherly, friendly love, like I'm just supposed to treat you kindly. It's the I would give my life for you love. So when you run into people that are, you know, not kind, I've had a few Karens that I had to work for, or certain men that don't always, you know, say the nicest things to you.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, though, I think I'm very blessed in the team I have because 3 out of 4 of us are Christians. And then there's one of us who's not, but he's very respectful and doesn't push it. And he even, like, his kids go to church with his grandparents every now and then, but he just doesn't believe in a God. So, you know, I think I'm very fortunate in the workforce I'm at. So I don't experience it every day, but every now and then we work with people and things like that happen.
That makes it way nicer to be able to be surrounded by guys that have the same morals, same values. But yeah, we run into those guys that they could care less for what they say around you, how they act. They, you know, they're living the worldly life, and it's hard. For me, I got to remember we can't hold them to the same standards that we hold ourselves to.
Right.
Like, I don't know. I can't hold my coworkers' values as the same as mine, and that's what I have to remind myself because they don't have a reason to watch what they say. They don't have a reason to, you know, be mindful of how they're reacting to something.
Yeah.
You know, there's no excuse for them to. They don't need to.
Yeah, this idea of love is definitely the hardest one to get down because it's one that applies to literally every part of our life. I mean, you think of even back to Matthew 22 when Jesus asked what the greatest commandment is. Both of them had to do with loving.
Yeah. Yeah, Jesus was the ultimate example of it, right? Like,
Right.
Yeah.
you look at who he chose as disciples, and I don't know, I see like the fishermen of that time as like the construction workers of today, you know, like they're the rough of the rough out there just trying to get it done. They're, you know, you look at sailors, right? Sailors are known for what? Having foul mouths, right? So it's, Jesus took those guys in as disciples, and I'm sure they weren't perfect when they started. You know, they weren't perfect when they ended their discipleship, but they were working on it.
I mean, that's interesting to note too, because I don't believe Peter gave a sermon until way later.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I think that gives us some background, probably, that he had a long journey to walk forward and like to really embody enough of these fruits to kind of you know, teach the way that we need to, especially as we were talking about the other day with the whole preachers and everything. I mean, I would assume you teach here every now and then.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, like, that's part of your responsibility as a man of the church, but also as a blue collar worker. Like, you know, if you grew up in this place that we're talking about, I can see that being very hard to feel like you're even worthy to stand behind a pulpit and give a sermon.
Yeah, and it's hard not to let those influences rub off on you. You know, it's a constant battle you're fighting to make sure your faith is standing out against the world.
Right.
Yeah, and I just made sure, fact check you. It is agape, yeah. Yeah. Usually I have that marked out, what word we're talking about, and I was like, God, I don't have it.
I only know that because of Scott's lesson this last week.
Yeah, it's a good thing it's fresh.
I was like,
He did say it.
I was like, okay, good. I didn't mishear that one.
All right, our second one's joy. How do you want to tackle joy?
Joy is interesting because, as we understand, joy is not necessarily a feeling. It is part of it, but it's more of a, like, I'm gonna choose to be happy. Like, I'm gonna choose to look at the bright side. I'm gonna. One thing that we talked about when we had our Fruits of the Spirit class at Sycamore was that most of these fruits were anti-flesh. But to embody these fruits is mainly to make a choice and not really how you feel. So like happiness would be the feeling we feel, but joy is more of the consistent. I'm gonna walk today with a smile. I'm gonna put down the things I don't really need to worry about right now. I need to, what was the quote Dale said? It was like, if you're gonna worry about it, don't pray about it.
It's a valid point.
You know what I mean? So joy is interesting, especially for us because we work in a labor field. A lot of people don't. So a lot of people like us can get wear down body-wise and have a rough day because I had to carry 300 sheets of drywall on a building today and my fingers and my back hurt and all these kind of things. And you come home all grumpy and make your family all mad at you. But, that's part of the joy we have to accept is that, we're not going to walk home with a frown on our face, talking about how terrible our day was. Like you have a wife at home. I'm sure the last thing she wants to hear is how awful your day was, when she's probably got some stuff that she wants to say.
Yeah, I mean, she's in the medical field, so she's always got some kind of crazy thing going on too. It's always one thing or the other.
So yeah, I mean, I think that's how it would kind of apply, is just applying it like that. I'm gonna get home and I'm gonna have a good attitude. Even though I might not always feel that way.
Yeah, it's definitely a choice. Like you said, it's just choosing to find joy in what God's given you through the hard times, and knowing that He's staying with you throughout your entire life.
Yeah, I was going to go to James 1:2. Obviously, we know this one, but my brethren, count it all joy when you fall into various trials. And I have a quote wrote down: to consider it joy is to base your joy on what the promise of what God intends to do with the trial. Mm-hmm. So using that trial as God's promise of giving you joy, right? How can you find joy in that trial? Romans 8:28. And we know that all things work together for good to those who love God and to those who are called according to His purpose. So if you're trying to live joy through God, you're going to find it.
Right. I'd like us to flip to Psalms 46:10. If you've got it, it's the verse. It says peace, or it says be still and know that I am Christ. It's one that I often try to remember in my work line because you can get so busy. Most days I'm getting off work, I'm driving home, taking out the dog. I'm trying to do all I can to get out of my house as fast as I can because I got to get to the next thing. So I think finding those moments where you can just rest and just be still, and something kind of like you were saying, Matthew, I think we've done it a lot. Well, I did do it on this trip. Then I got hit with a wave of water, and I was no longer feeling the love of Christ.
You were in the wrong boat, bro.
My boat could not walk on water.
I think this needs some context. So we took these guys for a raft trip on the Kenai River here, and there's 15 of them, and I think we had like 22 people total.
Yeah, it was somewhere between 18 and 24.
Yeah, so we had a lot of people. So we rented three rafts, and then a couple people from the church brought their own rafts. So these poor guys got thrown in and packed them into boats, and we did the upper Kenai, so it's a little more rapidy, We got on the wrong boat and got wet. My boat stayed dry.
Yeah, but you almost ran us into a rock.
But we didn't hit the rock.
We missed it by like 2 inches.
But we didn't hit the rock.
But
and
no,
you were dry.
On a serious note, like the first 5-10 minutes of the trip, I'm taking this moment to sit here and just look at God's beauty and be like, wow, like I'm here. Let's enjoy this time and let's see where God is in these moments and kind of reflect on the trip so far and just think about, where God's taken us and all these kind of things. And I think as a blue-collar worker, if you have that moment to just think about things like, look what we're building for someone to potentially raise a family in. Like in the Old Testament, having a family is is a wonderful blessing by God. So regardless if they even know God right now, like the Lord has blessed them with kids, the Lord has blessed them with a home, and you get to be the hands that built that home.
Yeah, even some of the mission work you guys were doing here, it may have seemed small, Yeah, I know one of the things you guys did was hand out pamphlets at a Wednesday market. Mm-hmm. That's small. Or the yard work you did for one of the elderly ladies. Mm-hmm. She's a widow, needed some help. You guys went over there. She loves her yard. What you did for her mental health was huge, right? Just by going and mowing her lawn, pulling some weeds, that was huge for someone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I guess the biggest challenge probably for us is the mental side of these fruits,
Yeah, something that really helps me is I think we have this idea of prayer has to be like this 100% quiet time, close your eyes, bow your head, and really think about what you're praying about, right? Like we have this idea of what prayer is.
Yeah.
And I think that we kind of have that like a misconception of prayer. Mm-hmm. Where in the Bible does it say we have to close our eyes, fold our hands, bow our heads, pray? Right?
Not once.
Yeah, I don't know if it's possible. If you can prove that, prove me wrong. I mean, we obviously want to know if we're wrong, but I don't see anywhere where it says
I feel like
that's...
the hands party is one of them, though. I don't know. I'm 100% certain that eyes closed is not
right.
Thing, but I feel like the hands might be. Do you know anything about that?
It doesn't say anything about folding your hands. I know at some point it says lift your hands, but I don't know exactly where that's at.
I mean, we'll look into this. We'll throw it in. I'll throw in a little segment here if we're wrong here. Correct ourselves. But as far as I know, there's nowhere where we get instructions on how to pray other than Jesus' example.
Right.
What about when we're running a piece of equipment? Yeah. What about when we're driving a truck? What about when you're, hanging drywall? Mm-hmm. Why can't you be having a conversation with God? Why can't you have that in your mind? Mm-hmm. That helps me find joy in situations a lot when I can have that avenue to talk to God, and I don't have to make it I don't have to wait till I pray for dinner tonight to get these things off my mind, off my heart. I can have that open dialogue with God. That's one of the things that through the new covenant Christ gave us, I think we have a huge avenue of,
Is it James? Pray without ceasing. Is it James?
Pray without ceasing?
Yeah, is it James? Sometimes I wish my pages weren't so small. I can't really flip through them. I'm pretty sure it's James 5, I think. Or it's 2 Thessalonians. It's one of the two. One of them says prayer has power, and the other one says prayer without ceasing. It might be Thessalonians.
I think it's Thessalonians.
But while he's flipping, I'll talk. Praying without ceasing is something that I think we often see as unattainable because how are you supposed to pray all day? Like, I got to think about all these things. I've got this person to worry about. I've got this job to do. If I've got to pray to God, like, I can't sit here with my eyes closed all day. Like, there's things I need to get done, like you're saying. But I think when we talk about praying without ceasing, one thing that really helps me is not necessarily talking to God all day, but it's more so inviting Him all day.
Yeah.
So, before I walk on the job site, I go, Lord, just be with us today. Like, I invite you into this place. I ask that you're here, like, guide me, keep us safe, walk into work, And then, like, randomly, if I have to do something hard, I'm, like, walking over to do whatever I'm doing. I'm like, Lord, just be with me. Just guide me. Like, we can do this. Like, I'm kind of hyping myself up, but I'm, like, talking to the Lord. And in the same way, you drive around. You drive a lot. So, I mean, you got the time to pray in the car, and you work on cars. I'm sure you don't have cars every second of the day. So, I mean, you probably got some time in there to throw in a quick prayer. Like, something that'd be really cool for you, since you probably work with a lot more people than we end up working with, is to kind of say pray over each vehicle that you work on. You know, like, Lord, bless this vehicle. I pray that this vehicle will get them to their destination safely, and like that, those kind of things, you know. If we ever do, I've started doing the Luke chapter 10 thing where it's like the harvest is plentiful verses.
Right.
And at the end of it, of like a 4-verse segment, it says, when you enter a house, first say peace to this house. And if one who promotes peace is there, your peace will rest upon them. And if not, it'll return to you. And I've been like thinking about that a lot. It's like pretty much every time I've entered a house this trip, I've been like, peace to this house.
I think we really limit the power of God.
100%.
Like, we put God in a box.
100%.
Yeah. Like a small box, right?
Yeah. I don't know if y'all know this, but God created the box. So he's got to be outside the box.
Yeah, right. We got a very limited worldview of what God is and who God is. And I wish we could understand better who we serve.
For sure. But I think prayer is probably a good segment to roll to the next fruit as well. Being patient, I believe.
Yeah, and I wanted to point out, like you mentioned, like I think there is a time for like more organized prayer, like more quiet, intimate time for prayer. Like, but I do think that there's, I don't know. I think I said what I want to say.
Scripture tells us that, you know, Jesus walks to the top of the hill and prays to the Father.
Yeah, there was a set apart time for it.
Right. There's definitely times where you need to be with God in silence and for a longer period of time. I think are you aware of what are they called? Spiritual disciplines? Are you aware of those?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like meditation and prayer is one of the ones that like common America really struggles with, because sitting here for 3 hours straight with your eyes closed and not falling asleep is not easy.
We got to be stimulated all the time, whether it's the TV show's on, you know, or I got to go play my games, or got to get this job done. You know, we're so overstimulated that we can't focus on quiet time.
Right. I think we need it. So we have a really, I don't know if we've told you, but we have a really interesting thing in Cookeville. There's this cross by the interstate. If you guys ever visit, please stop by the cross. It's very beautiful. You can't miss it coming down the interstate. And you turn off to the right and you go down. It's a church's cross. Like, their church is right there. But it's open to the public. You can come as you go. So every Sunday night after worship service, depending on weather, obviously, we'll take a group up there. And we have this time where typically around this time of year, it's right after church. The sunset's right there. You can watch it. It's very pretty. You get to admire God's creation a little more, but we also, within like kind of what we did for you guys, make a little Devo spot. They have a spot back there like 5 feet into the woods where there's just a bunch of rocks, big boulders, and you can sit on them. And we sit on them and we just have prayer for like at least 30 minutes in this segment to an hour, and sometimes it goes way longer than that. Sometimes it's a little shorter. Typically, I'm the last one to leave, so I like to spend time there. Yeah. Because I've been going up there for the last 2.5 years to just, you know, when I need to make a decision or if I need to think about something, like that's the spot to go to. And so we started doing it as a group, and after that we move by the cross and we kneel down and we have a physical repentance. It's a much better reminder than saying, "Oh God, I'm so sorry for, you know, lying the other day." But if you get on your knees and you're like, "Lord, I am," like, you see how big this cross, and it makes you feel like he is the authority, and I really need to bow down and surrender again. It's like that form of prayer has really helped us, especially when we talk about a spiritual discipline of meditation. Like the first few times, I know some others went, like sitting there on that rock, like not wanting to open your eyes and look around was very difficult, because you want to know, like, is everyone else done? What? Right. What was that sound? Like,
yeah. And I know like certain spots have that effect on people, you know, like the spot where we pulled our rafts out of the river the other day. Like that's one of those spots for me. Like that's where I like to go, like, just be in God's creation. Like that's the spot for me where I find that peace in God. Like I want to just sit there and take it in, you know?
Yeah.
So I think if you don't have that spot, you know,
you need to find one.
You need to find one. It's, yeah. And 1 Thessalonians 5:17 is what you were looking for. And I think
that is it. Yeah,
interestingly enough, at verse 16, right before it says, "Rejoice always," and then it says, "Pray without ceasing." And then everything give thanks, for this is the will of God in Jesus Christ for you. So sums up the last two fruits we just talked about. You know, it takes that joy to have that peace, that prayer.
Yeah, so let's move to peace now, yeah.
I think that's our next one. Galatians 5:22. Yeah, love, joy, and of peace.
I think I taught a lesson on peace not too long ago, so I'll give a little bit of background information on this word because I have it. The New Testament Greek word is erine, and it's the form of peace being like this is how they describe it, because as we know, Hebrew typically does pictures. They don't always use definitions. So the best way that I think that describes it is if you were to imagine a bridge, for example, and the bridge holds, but it's like missing blocks, or it looks like it's cracking and those kind of things. That peace is that which restores the bridge to make it usable, if that makes sense. Yeah. So like when Christ is called the Prince of Peace, he's essentially, imagine this bridge being our relationship with the Lord and God, and imagine Christ being that peace that has fixed the bridge, restored it back to its place, so now we have interconnection with God again. And so like that's what the word is kind of getting at in the New Testament. The Old Testament word is what is it? It's not shaphat, that's not it. Shalom, that's the word. And in the Old Testament, it was more so used in a sense of like greeting was a lot of the way it was used. Like shalom, shalom was how they greeted each other. But it was also meant to it was more about a mental state in the Old Testament. Like there's a segment in Samuel where David asks if his soldiers are in shalom. Like, are you guys good? You guys ready to fight? Like, I want to make sure everyone's on the same page, you know? It's like that's the understanding of the word shalom and erine.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You got anything on peace?
Well, I looked it up before he said it, so.
I think the important thing about peace is it's a experience. Like, peace isn't something we can individually choose. Peace is something we experience by portraying the rest of the fruits, right? Like, if you're expressing love, if you're receiving love, if you're expressing joy, if you're receiving joy, you're acting on that joy, you're going to experience peace. I think peace is something God gives us. I don't think that's something we can actively give ourselves. I think we can take the steps to get there.
Yeah, you have to take some steps, because I think for me, you have to kind of at some point get to a place where some things don't matter anymore. I actually had a talk with one of the girls on our trip, and what she said was that she's finally at a point where she understands that God's opinion is the only one that matters. And to me, that just sounds like surrenderance in another way, you know? Like, because girls can often be very emotional and care what others think and have, like, the opinion matters a lot more. But to us, I think, for me especially, like, I had to realize that, you know, God's my only judge. Like, yeah, it doesn't matter how well I do on a test or if I mess up at work. I have to realize that's okay. It's fine.
There's so much unrest in the world right now. Like, you look politically, like there's so much going on politically and so much division, and both sides constantly moving away from God, right?
Right.
We're supposed to be one nation founded under God, you know?
It's on the dollar.
Yeah, we keep moving away from that. And what is that causing? It's causing that unrest. It's causing the opposite of peace. But for Christians, which I think we should be involved in politics, right? Because we need to protect our freedoms to serve our God. But we have a different perspective of it because we can know that God's in control. Ultimately, what happens in the White House doesn't affect where I'm going, right? We can have that peace that all this unrest that's going on, all this chaos, it doesn't matter. That's a huge... it brings peace to us, knowing that, that whatever the consequence is, ultimately doesn't affect my eternal life.
We just might get there a little quicker.
Right. And what's wrong with that? We should be ready, you know?
No problem.
Yeah.
And to your point about it being a choice, in the definition, it has it as God's gift of wholeness. And so since it's a gift, it's like grace, where you have to receive it. You have to be ready to receive it. You have to make the choice to have it. And so it's really, really cool. And man, you were talking about politics, but even in the church, there's a lot of times where we don't choose peace when we need to.
Yeah. The one place that should be representing peace should be being able to live that.
Yeah. I mean, even in your household, we talked about yesterday, it's like there's some battles not worth fighting. You know, like let's just choose peace here. Let's find
a common ground.
ground. No one has to be right or wrong. Like, let's just relax, guys.
Yeah. We can find common ground. We just choose not to.
Yeah. We want to think that we're right all the time, and it's not a healthy way to live. You're not going to make it very far. I think if you got to think you got to be right all the time.
If you do, it's going to be a long ways in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
You know.
That's true.
All right. Long suffering. I think that goes along with finding peace. Yeah.
I also just thought about this one too. Wait, long suffering, isn't that no, that's not
patience.
That's patience. I didn't teach on this one.
You don't even know what you taught on.
You did.
I did teach on.
You didn't teach on peace. You taught on patience.
I taught on peace a few weeks ago or a few months ago, but patience I did just teach on. I taught on Monday.
This one's a really tough one, especially in traffic.
Tell me about it.
I think we can have a hard time with patience. Like we said earlier, we're always on the go, especially as blue collar. Like our productive rate is what makes us money. So if we're working slow, that's we're not getting paid. We're not making money. We can't provide. So that puts us in a weird bind. But at the same time, I think patience is good because I don't know if you have people under you in your job. Like I don't know if you're
depends on the day.
Technically a boss, but as you're probably aware, people can mess up a lot, and that can probably drive you nuts sometimes. And you would have to have patience for these people and be like, look, so it's okay. Let's just.
Yeah, your instant reactions, right? You're slowing down production. You're costing the company money.
Right, You're thinking about future and like what's all going on, but he's not thinking about that. He's thinking,
maybe he just doesn't know.
He's over here like, how do I do this? I don't want to look like an idiot, so I'm gonna try it, but hopefully we don't mess it up.
Yeah.
Or you do have those people who just don't care, and they're like, whatever, this is the best you're gonna get out of me, and those people are hard to deal with.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. Right. And usually, it just plays out for them where it doesn't work out, right?
Yeah. They end up being there for like a month.
Yeah, but we try to be that mediator for it.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. I think like the best example of long suffering and this patience is God in the Old Testament, like going against the Israelites, his people he chose to bring Jesus through, that he's leading, he brings them out of slavery, they choose, no, we want to serve a golden calf, because you've been gone for 40 days. And I heard an interesting thing the other day, that we give the Israelites a hard time for making a golden calf. Like Moses was gone for 40 days, right? Mm-hmm. And everyone wants to rat on Aaron for like, dude, you couldn't make it 40 days. Mm-hmm. Think about the sin in your life, the reoccurring sin that you struggle with, whether it's being angry or lying, whatever it is. Yeah. Can you go 40 days without committing that sin?
Probably not.
40 days is a long time, right? When we put it in our personal lives, but God's constantly bringing it back to him. He's always, as soon as they're ready to come back, he's ready for them. Yeah. And he does it over and over and over again with the Israelites. But Exodus 34, verse 6.
Oh, I knew it.
Yeah. And the Lord passed before him and proclaimed, the Lord God, merciful and gracious, long-suffering and abounding in goodness and truth, keeping mercy for thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgressions and sin, and by no means clearing the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers of the children and the children's children to the third and fourth generation. And I don't know. I love looking at the character of God, right?
Yeah.
We don't know everything about God. We never will. Mm-hmm. But he shows who he is by his actions. He doesn't just say, this is who I am. Mm-hmm. This is Moses talking about who God is.
Yeah, but that's often
his first-hand experience
the
of
best
God.
Trait of describing people is what other people say.
Yeah.
If you have somebody who tells you, I'm not prideful. most times they probably are.
Yeah.
Like, no, I don't have this problem. Of course you have that problem. You know, like hearing about the personality or the character of somebody else through others is typically the best way to figure it out. You know?
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's an awesome description of how we're supposed to be.
Mm-hmm. I mean, like we talked about in the lesson was, can you really blame the Israelites? I think something, we talked about false idols yesterday.
Yeah.
And I think this plays in pretty well. You know, 40 days without worshiping a calf. Well, what the heck? These guys are crazy. How in the
Could you
world
go 40
they do
days
that?
without Instagram reels?
Yeah, let's just take your whole life, put it on pause. Because you got to think, who were the Israelites following? What were they doing? Right? They just got out of Egypt. They've barely got anything on them. They've got probably enough to get by. And they've got themselves and Moses. It was, you know, like, what are you worshiping, really?
Yeah.
God's really the only thing there. Right?
Most of what they knew was probably Egyptian gods.
Right. So let's take you go on a whole month. You don't open your phone. You don't go to work. You don't do anything but pray to God and read your Bible. You think you do that for 40 days straight without wanting to do anything else?
Yeah.
Like, especially when, say you do it with James, your preacher, and he just leaves.
Right.
The guy leading you is gone. So now you're like, well, now what do I do?
Right.
Judges does this very well. The book of Judges, the last verse, says, all this came to be because there was no king, and they did as they saw fit. We need to be led by a shepherd. Like, that's 100% a fact. Moses isn't there. What happens? They fall away. You know, we don't have Jesus anymore. Jesus was here, and the disciples and the apostles did a pretty good job. Sometimes the Church of Corinth and other places weren't the best, but it's like, look how far we are from the early church. We're so far away. So like we need a shepherd, and if we don't have one, I think we often make the wrong decisions.
Yeah. Sometimes we forget God's our ultimate shepherd, and we try to do it our own way, you know?
Mm-hmm. Patience. I think we got a little sidetracked. Hit us with something.
Bring it back around to patience. Yeah. I don't know. Like obviously we mentioned in the beginning, the point of this is how we apply these fruits to our work life. Yeah, you nailed it on the head. I think when we first started talking about long suffering and having that patience for your coworkers it's rough sometimes, really rough. But
I think also being in a management position, not that I am in one, but I feel for my boss a lot sometimes because I don't understand the magnitude of a mess up quite yet.
Right.
Like I know some things I understand could be a big deal, but in my head I'm like, what's the difference between me doing this process this way versus this way? When it saves him 3 minutes, probably, like to me, I'm like, why are you yelling at me? Like, this is silly. I was like, well, what's the big deal? But he's over here, like, got all these things in his head. So I think learning that kind of patience with people when they just don't understand the things that you're getting right now, the things you're trying to work through, the things you have to carry for, you know, I mean, that's something I try to do is whenever I'm not getting something, I try to just be like, all right, I'm just going to shut up and do what he says because I don't know what's happening. I don't know why it has to be this way, but he clearly seems like there has to be done this way.
yeah, I think because I've worked with a lot of old timers that they don't want to teach you, right? Mm-hmm. They just want to tell you that it needs to be done this way, but they don't want to teach you how. And I think part of acting your patience out is instead of getting angry at these guys that you're trying to manage or that are just getting on your nerves, you know, ultimately is what it is.
Yeah.
Taking the time to teach them, be a mentor to them, I think that goes a lot further than just trying to block it out, right? Yeah. Eliminate the problem. You can do that by being patient with them and
for sure
coaching them through it. Yeah.
You look like you're getting something ready.
Oh, I was just looking.
Okay. Well, do you have anything else? I think we can.
Yeah. I think we can have kindness and goodness in the same go, right?
Yeah. Actually, it's really funny you point that out. If you look at the Greek word for kindness, it also means goodness.
Right.
So, but it's really all of the fruits are a choice. But this one's how you treat others. You have the choice. Anytime something goes wrong, anytime someone treats you wrong, you have to choose kindness. It's just the way you treat someone.
Yeah. I don't know. I wonder why Paul names them separately.
I think for goodness, when we get there, it's a different Greek word for this goodness in the fruit of the Spirit.
You want to pull some definitions for us?
When we get to goodness,
Yeah.
Because we're still in kindness. I think kindness can be, honestly, one of the hardest ones. Because, I mean, I think half our language today is to bully each other. Because it's fun. Or, like, you know, especially, at least in our work field, like, I'm the guy who gets hit with most of the jokes.
If they're making jokes, they like you.
Like, I guarantee you I'm going to get back, and they're like, Nathan, oh, my gosh. I'm like, what did I do? He's like, why would you let us do this?
Yeah.
And I'm like, what do you mean, like, let you do it? I wasn't even here. Like, which is totally okay, but, like, can you imagine the kind of difference you would have in a work field if those jokes weren't even made? Like, you cared more about just being kind. And, you know, instead of saying, bruh, like, why did you mess this up? Be like, hey, man, you did a great job on that today. It throws me off when I get a compliment at work. Like, I'm like...
Yeah, you don't know how to take it.
I was like, what do you mean? I think they're lying to me because it's so uncommon. I was like, can you imagine the difference if we as Christians in the blue collar field, like, were just absurdly kind? That would probably be like, I don't know. Those dudes would probably never have ever had that kind of experience, you know? So I think it's something that would be an awesome benefit.
Yeah. You know, Toby in your group, I think he's like a really good example of demonstrating kindness. Like, we were playing volleyball the other night, and someone had a really, really ungraceful serve, right? And naturally, we're all competitive, having a good time. And I don't think anyone took it as intentional, but just we gave her a hard time because it was just this really ungraceful serve, you know? Yeah. Yeah. And Toby, like, immediately, Toby immediately goes to bat for it. Like, oh, no, it's okay. Like, you did great. You know, you'll get it next. Like, the total opposite of what we were harassing her for, you know? And
now, don't let Toby deceive you. He has his moments where he gets you. It's like a little poke. And I'm like,
it hurts a little more coming from someone that's usually nice, too.
Because I forgot his slides on the sermon. And it seemed like he put a lot of time in that. And I felt really bad about it. But I knew it was coming because he's too nice, but he knows how to get you sometimes. We were talking about something the other day about me forgetting something because this whole trip just has not gone the plan. And then he's like,
you've only traveled like 5,000, 6,000 miles.
Yeah, I know, it's fine. He was like, I said something like, yeah, Nathan, you know, checks out, you know, Nathan forgot my slides too.
It won't let you get over it. Yeah. But man, like you were saying, if we would have just not harassed Blythe, sorry Blythe, my bad.
Yeah,
but
no more harassment.
Man, we could have just taught her how to serve better. Instead, we had to like just cut her down. You know,
John and his little kid, they were like doing this.
Yeah. Sorry, Blythe. We'll treat you like a little kid next time.
Yeah. No. Grow up a little bit.
Not demonstrating kindness, Nathan. Yeah. So, did you pull some definitions for kindness and goodness?
So I did actually. It is a different Greek word, and there's a reason for it. The root word for goodness in the fruit of the Spirit is the same word for good used in the story of the rich young ruler, where he calls Jesus good teacher, and Jesus says, "Why do you call me good? There's no one good but God." So the word for goodness in the fruit of the Spirit directly relates to God's character, and we're not gonna be good. As much as we can try to choose goodness, with it being connected to that verse, if no one's good but God. So.
Yeah, I have a note in here that Paul's using virtues to describe perfection, and perfection is what we're striving for, right? We'll never obtain it until we go to heaven.
Yeah.
While we're in our fleshly bodies, we're not going to obtain perfection.
Right.
But we're supposed to strive for perfection, and that's by acting out these virtues.
Definition of a Christian.
Yeah.
True. Yeah, goodness it's a weird one, I think. what did oh, actually no, I was gonna point another Mr. Massey example, but he was comparing kindness to gentleness, so it doesn't work here.
Yeah, I think there is a difference when you're acting out kindness versus goodness.
Here's a good one. I got something. All right, you ready? Buckle up. No.
Can we handle it?
Yeah, you'll be fine. It's not that
No.
cool. So, when I taught on, I don't remember what I taught, but it was something to do with this. Anyway, we're going for it. I don't have context anymore. But so in Genesis, when God is creating everything and He says, "And it was good," right? The Hebrew doesn't have the word perfect in their vocabulary. It's not a thing. So to claim that like God is perfect doesn't make sense. That's not something that they understand. So, but calling God good is the closest thing they get to it. It's like this is as is. It does not need a change. This is good. This is perfect in a sense. Like that's what they're saying.
Right.
So when God created the heaven and the earth and it was good, that's saying that's it. Leave it.
That was perfection.
That was perfection.
Yeah.
But they call it good, right? Which is really, really awesome because you think about the word goodness here. It's like, what does it mean to have goodness? Let's strive for perfection. Let's strive to be God's good. Let's strive to be when God created man and it was good, let's be that man. Now, obviously, Adam didn't live up to be that man, but I love that I get to say this right now. I don't know who I just told this, but I just told somebody this. Adam and Jesus, I'll make this quick because it's a little off topic, but I think it's really awesome. Adam and Jesus, when you think about them, what do you think when you think of them collectively in the same thought? Like what's your thought process there?
Their connection to God.
Okay. Yeah. Well, do you think there's anything in their stories that kind of parallel or contrast or?
I mean, other than the obvious of Adam committed sin, Jesus didn't. I don't know.
Well, good. That's where I'm going.
Okay. Make sure I'm following your rabbit trail.
Yeah. So the trees, man, like the trees are crazy in Scripture. You're gonna want to dial in on this. So when Adam sins, he eats of the apple. What does he do? Where does he go? I'm asking you.
He goes to God.
Bible trivia. Does he?
No.
No, he does not. He runs away from
Right.
God. God goes, Adam, where are you? That's what he says. And what's interesting is not like God's like, I don't know where Adam is. I haven't seen him. God obviously knows where Adam is. He's saying, Adam, you're not where you're supposed to be. You're normally here and we walk with the garden, but you're not here right now. Where are you at? He's hiding behind a tree. He's ashamed of his nakedness and he's hiding behind a tree. What's awesome about Jesus and circling the whole, like just putting a cap on the Old Testament, is when he dies on the cross, he bears the weight of our sin, right? But he's in front of the tree this time. The cross is made out of wood, which is the tree. I think in one of the Gospels it's even said tree. Like I'm pretty sure that's what it says, is that he was like crucified on a tree. So to like look at the stories and be like, Adam had sin, so he hid behind the tree. Jesus came to bear all the sin between Adam and now and forevermore, and he stands in front of the tree and bears the weight in front of God. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah, he even calls out for God to come and meet him in his sin, right?
Yeah.
In the sin, not Christ's sin, but our sin that he's bearing for us. He calls for God to come meet him in it.
It's a beautiful picture. I love it. I think about it all the time.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Total opposites.
Yeah, completely.
No.
Yeah. It is because goodness, we're never going to get there. That's like the big thing, especially if it's perfection. It's God's character. But Jesus dying on that tree, the grace covers it. But also, if we're growing in God's word, we're still growing towards God, towards God's character. But even though we can't get there, because I've noticed in my life there have been like spurts where I forget to read my Bible for like 2 weeks straight, and I notice myself, like the attitude, everything, it just gets further away from what God would want me to be.
Yeah, you're not.
For sure.
What you're consuming is not what you're gonna put out what you're consuming, and if you're not consuming God's word, if you're not taking that time to be with God, you're not gonna be putting out godly characters, right?
Yeah. Well, I think we ought to move on over.
Yeah, we got 15 minutes to nail the rest of these.
maybe 20. So we've got what was the next one?
Faithfulness.
Also just taught on that today or Monday.
Today.
Faithfulness is awesome. I think faithfulness for us is very difficult. I don't ever think we could achieve the same level that God gives, because we read the Bible and this whole book is testament to faithfulness.
Yeah. What is faith?
Faith. Why are you getting me right now? I should know this. This is a big part of my walk.
I think on a base level, it's a
met is the word.
Right. Yeah. So it's a conviction of truth,
stability,
right?
Reliability, trust.
Yeah.
Amen.
Is it something we have to practice, or is it something we just have?
No, you definitely can't just have.
Yeah. It's an everyday thing, right? I think a lot of people expect, like, if I'm going to believe in God, if I'm going to be a Christian, I have to have 100% faith all the time. It doesn't work like that, you know? We're going to have doubts. We're going to have questions that we can't answer. I think every Christian experiences that.
And you can look at all the New Testament characters, every one of them, had stumbles in faith. That wasn't like, Peter, we talk about him a lot.
Yeah.
Jesus 3 times.
You look at Hebrews 11, which is known for these heroes of faith, right? This hall of faith is what we call it. And every one of them had huge stumbles in their walk with God.
Yeah.
And most of them bigger stumbles than most of us will have, Crash. It's empty. We're good. But
Got lucky.
I don't know. I wish people understood that even to be baptized, you don't need to have everything figured out. Baptism's the beginning of your walk, You don't get everything right, then get baptized.
Yeah.
You can't.
Yeah.
You got to understand that I'm an imperfect man. I'm being baptized to start trying to commit my life to God.
Yeah.
That's the beginning. It's not the end.
Mm-hmm.
But,
So true.
yeah, faith is a continual struggle that you have to, and how do you battle it?
Yeah, it was, I have no idea. But,
Being in the Word of God, to me, right? Surrounding yourself with people that are like-minded,
Yeah, just sounds like it just keeps coming with life,
Mm-hmm.
I think I talked to Lewis about this last night. Shout out Lewis if you're watching, because I think he said he wanted to. We talked about this idea of trust, and that relies heavily with faithfulness, and I was like, I think as God's people, we're called to trust and to be trusted every part of our life. Like, you need to embody those things. And we were talking about it because he was like, I've been burned so many times, and I was like, yeah, you're gonna keep getting burned, but I was like, you gotta be the person someone else can trust. It doesn't matter if they burn your trust 60 times, 70 times 7, whatever it is. You better still be trustworthy to them, because that's the way God calls us to be.
When I pulled the definition for faith, something interesting to me came up, that respecting man's relationship to God. I think that's a totally different view of what we have of faith, like respecting man's relationship to God. It's interesting to me.
Yeah, like what?
Yeah, I don't know exactly.
Like how that would, because obviously, I respect your relationship with God, but like,
I think it's more about like respecting your own relationship to God. Like, I don't know. It almost gives me like a position of humility to God, right? Mm. And I think it comes back to understanding that we're not gonna know everything about God. That's what requires the faith, right? But to believe in Him. But I think faith is coming to terms with that you don't know everything.
Yeah, it's kind of like putting your trust in Him, because that's one of the things associated with it, is that trust. It's like knowing we're not gonna know the plan. We don't know what's next. Like, he's going to printer school. I got no idea where I'm gonna be in 6 months.
I know where you're gonna be. Back here.
You're gonna be in this seat next podcast. So like, you know, having that trust to just be like, Lord, you're faithful. I know you are. So I'm going to just let you do what you do. And I'm here for the ride.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. That's one of the reasons I dropped out of school to go into preaching. It was actually a conversation with you where you mentioned that, like, it's just trusting God, knowing He's going to be faithful to you if you're doing His will.
Yeah, like one of the things I was asking myself last night, granted it's late, so it's like, Brad's not really thinking clearly. It's like, you know, where am I going, and is God going to follow? Of course, right? No matter where I'm at. But it's like, where yields the greatest growth? You know, is jumping over here to Alaska gonna really grow my faith?
Right.
Probably a lot, because that's putting a lot of dependence on something that, you know, it's a lot harder to do. I have secure life. I could sit here for the rest of my life right where I'm at, be just fine.
Yeah, just coast.
You know, but I was like, I thought about why I dropped out, and I was like, well, I did it because I was like, I need to do more. Like, I want to commit my life, and you know, just going to church on Sunday, Wednesday, leading a Bible study. Like, sure, I do more than most, but that's not what I set out to do. You know? Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Stop converting me, Hayden. This man's trying to convert us to Alaskanism.
It's not me. It's God's creation, man.
Alaskanism.
Who said that last night?
I think it was me.
Was it you?
Yeah.
Let's nail down gentleness.
And
I don't know about you guys, but I'm not a gentle person.
Does gentleness require sympathy?
Gentleness is interesting.
I think so.
Dang it.
I think so. Because I'm rough and rowdy, and I'm not sympathetic, so I don't know. This is probably not my strong suit. I'm curious to see what you guys have to say about it.
Gentleness is interesting because the Greek word also is the word for meekness, which is strength under control. So it's not gentle. Isn't being weak. It's not. It's not like
just laying down, laying low.
Not laying down, letting anything and everything happen to you. You have the strength to do something, but you're just choosing not to use it.
Yeah, I think the blue collar especially needs to work on this, just because typically we are the stronger of the men. You know, you're the one lifting the heavy stuff, and
expected to be stronger than the rest of society, right?
True. Yeah. And you know, to have that meekness or this gentleness is kind of like, you know, you go to work. Most people around you can deal with it, but like, you go home and you've got, say you have a wife and 3 daughters or something like that, you know, you've got to completely be a different person almost to like survive in both areas. You know, I would assume as having a father of daughters, you know, you've got to be pretty gentle with them. You know, you can't really rough them around the edges like you can with dudes a lot of the time. So it's like, again, that's not an experience I know how to talk.
Yeah, I know what you mean though. Like I'm expecting a kid in December, so.
Do you know the gender?
A boy, yeah. So,
lucky guy.
I know. I got away with that one. But even like he's not even here yet, and I'm looking at like what characteristics of mine, and gentleness is one of them. Like, how do I portray that correctly, right? Yeah. How do I be gentle without being? Because I think when we think of gentleness, we think of laying low, like. And that's not how I was raised, you know. It's not how we act in society in the field we're in. Like, how do you portray God's character in that? And like, I don't see anywhere where God laid low. Like we're supposed to strive to be as God's character, and
I don't think laying low is the definition for
right.
Sure. Like,
but I think that's how we view it so much.
So much of meekness is I see of like. You know when you see those people that are quiet for the most, we kind of talked about Dale this way. I don't know Dale to be this way because I've known him for a long time, but this is the way you saw him, was like he's kind of quiet, but then you heard him speak and you're like, wow, this guy knows what he's doing.
Killed it.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, it's not really expected, and it's, I think especially for me, for example, is, I don't know how this ends up happening because I don't really feel like I'm that good at this. But I've been called like the big brother of the SOC because like I'm not trying to date every girl I talk to, but I'm often the ear that listens and that just hears them.
A comfortable person to go to.
Yeah, so it's kind of like being that person is they understand that like I'm not like I can be forceful if I need to, but I'm also very much like every time we start something, I'm the one who has to yell at everybody to get everybody's attention, but at the same time, that same night, Brittany comes and talks to me for like 4 hours about stuff she has on her heart. And like, I think to me, that reflects that I'm probably gentle.
Right. I think it's interesting that every one of these characteristics moves into the next one. Like gentleness, I think, leads into self-control.
Self-control.
Yeah. So gentleness, right? Self-control is the next one we're going to talk about. The gentleness, and if you're acting out gentleness, that like controlled strength, I think is how you put it. Was it strength?
Strength under control is the definition of meekness.
What is that?
Yeah,
Self-control, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's cool. Like it leads into it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're practicing being gentle, if you're being under control, now you're going to learn how to be self-controlled, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it proves that it says the fruit of the Spirit, not fruits. Like, you don't have 5 and not all 9 or whatever it is. Like, you gotta, each one of them builds with each other. Sure, you can, like, focus on one maybe, but, like, you got to have them all at some point, or at least that's the goal. Do you think it's possible to fully obtain all of them?
I don't think we'll fully obtain any of them. I think we have a small grasp on all of them.
Because it's interesting because all of these are God's character, so we're never gonna have.
But we're
perfect
also
character of God,
an exact image of God. So He's put these into us. We just have to use them.
Yeah. But
Self-control.
what? Oh, you're going into self-control. All right.
We're short on time. So
Yeah, we are short on time.
But you can talk, please.
Go for it.
No, but we keep going back to it. But Jesus is again the perfect example of this, because if he's described as meek. We look at even we even look at the cross. Jesus, we sing a song. He could have called 10,000 angels to destroy the world if he really wanted to, and but he chose our need for salvation over his comfort, over his not wanting to have that pain.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think as a blue collar, self-control applies, and probably anger. I think a lot of guys have that problem. I personally don't suffer from it. I'm pretty chill. I don't get angry really ever. But like my boss gets angry at me.
I wonder why.
So like just on this last job, like no, he quoted it for 3 days. I'm like, this is gonna take a week and a half. What are you talking about? So I'm already like, this is ridiculous. And we come to the end of the job, and he's like, he pulls me aside because I'm asking questions because I'm like, I don't understand. Help me understand. And at some point, some people are like, I don't want to hear your questions. Just shut up and just work, please. Like,
right.
Like we're losing money. Like all this. You're not really thinking about how to train or like how to better something else. And he pulls me on the side. He's like, Nathan, we're only gonna make $100 off this job. If you don't get your butt back in there. He's like, yes, sir. Didn't say a word the rest of the day.
Yeah. I don't know. I struggle with being angry at work, right? Like, for a long time, I hated what I did for a living. I always I was kind of just born into dirt work. Mm-hmm. It's just what I knew, so I went with it out of high school. For a long time, I tried to get out of it. I wanted to do something different, but nothing would ever stick. Like, I mean, I tried to go into law enforcement. God kind of pushed me away from that. For now, looking back, for good reasons, right? I've tried going into other things.
Yeah.
Construction's what stuck. Now I'm getting good at it. I enjoy it because it's what I do. And now I really do enjoy it. But in the past, man, I was always so angry with where I was at, what I was doing. I wanted something different. Instead of having the self-control to be like, hey, this is God's providing me of life right now. I'm supporting myself. I'm making okay money. I can pay my rent. I'm doing all right. Mm-hmm. I think that's part of self-control. It's just being content, with where you're at. And that's something I've struggled with a lot.
Pull that into patience and all those other ones too. Being contentment is something.
Yeah. You mentioned it's the fruit of the Spirit. Mm-hmm. I think every time we talk about like how you guys broke it up as the fruits of the Spirit, right? Mm-hmm. We talk about it singularly every time. Mm-hmm. And I think there's, like we did, there's purpose in doing that, looking at what each individual aspect of it is. But you're right, it is the fruit of the Spirit. He doesn't say the fruits. Mm-hmm. opposites is all one and the same.
Yeah, and you pointed out anger is one that we usually lack self-control in, and that it really is, because anger isn't the sin. There in the right before the fruits of the Spirit is the works of the flesh, and I looked at the words for fits of anger. Hang on, let me just go back to that real quick. So. Fits of anger, the Greek word is used to describe actions coming from strong impulses. So it's the lack of self-control. It's letting anger control you instead of you controlling it.
Yeah.
And that's really a struggle, because working on cars, I've wanted to chuck a wrench through a windshield before.
Right now you snapped a little bolt.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, no, that's fair. That's why I don't mechanic for a living. Well, we're out of time. I think we're going to wrap up here. Episode 2 will be out in a year from now.
Yeah.
You guys are coming back up hopefully in a year. We'll do it again.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks for all the work you guys have been doing while you're here. Thanks for jumping in on the podcast. If it seems unorganized, that's because Kyle's not here and I was in charge. So, in the comments, get Kyle back up here. He's been busy, have some life stuff going on, and turns out being an hour and a half ways, a long ways when you're trying to come up here for an hour to nail down a podcast. So, hopefully he'll be back up here, and we'll be back in the swing of things this summer. So,
yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah,
We'll tune in for sure.
cool. Yeah, safe travels, guys. Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah.
Thank you for tuning in to the Blue Collar Christian Podcast, where we are dedicated to encouraging and equipping the hardworking men and women in the blue collar society. Please like, share, and subscribe wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.